Today, I'm going to share some slides with you to keep us on track with the content. And of course, today's session is called The Science of Effective Change.
今天讲座的题目呢是叫做科学变化的原理，然后我们结合了大家做导师教练的经历，然后把它翻译成了如何让客户产生有效的变化。
And I wanted to start with an exercise, a very simple exercise, which is to ask you to think about this on the screen. If your life were fantastic 10 to 15 years from now, if absolutely everything was ideal, what would it be like?
首先我邀请大家花时间考虑一个问题，就是如果从现在起10到15年以后，你的生活非常的美好，然后一切都很完美，那会是什么样子？
And as you imagine your fantastic life in 10 to 15 years from now, where absolutely everything is ideal, see if you can tune into any details that you notice in any particular area or space in your body.
当大家在想象就10到15年以后你的美好生活的时候，那时候一切都那么完美，你是否有注意到自己的身体可能某些部位在发生着变化？你是不是能察觉到这些细节上的变化？
And when you are ready, if you could locate an area in your body that seems to be aligned to your future ideal self, I'd like you to type in the chat here on Zoom where you felt it in your body as you think about your life being fantastic 10 to 15 years from now.
就如果大家是否能够发现你身体的某个部位，它就是关联着你对未来的美好幻想，那么请大家在聊天框中输入，就是你感觉到了什么，你是在哪个部位感觉到这种就是跟未来理想有关联的。
So I will just give you a few seconds to think about that, where in your body, when you think of the future ideal fantastic self, where everything is going really well for you, to just put that in the chat, and I see will also translate.
那我现在给大家一些时间思考一下这个问题，就是当你想象未来的美好生活的时候，你感觉到了什么？就是你是通过身体的哪个部位，然后能感觉到的。
And thank you for those of you who have written some things in the chat. We can see, Fisher, you said in your heart. Michelle, you could feel a relaxed brain and a loose shoulder. Ivy, you could feel it in your heart as well. And Wendy, in your heart. Lots in common.
就很多评论，但很多人都说就是用心感受到的，或者说从可能放松的肩膀呀，或者是大脑感到的。
And hopefully the rest of you are now thinking about this. So if my life was fantastic 10 to 15 years from now, if absolutely everything were ideal, what would it be like? Some of us can locate it in our bodies, and some of us we find it more challenging. And we're going to talk more about this as we go and why this is related to the changes that we're looking to make in our lives.
那么呢，我们也希望其他人也好好的思考一下这个问题，就是这个关于对未来的美好幻想，它会跟我们的身体哪个部位有关联。然后今天呢，我们也会就这个主题展开讨论。
So we can see more responses. Kelly has said in the head. Jenny Wang said in the brain and the heart. Okay, so you're locating the ideal image of yourself somewhere in your body. So thank you everybody for that.
大家呢还有答案是也是大脑啊还有心，感谢大家的分享，大家都能就是把这个对未来的幻想跟自己身体的某个部位连接起来，非常感谢，非常好。
So you're probably thinking, well, why is Celine asking us to think about this fantastic ideal self in the future and where we locate it in our body. And that's what we're going to talk about today and how this is related to change.
大家可能现在就很好奇，我为什么会提这个问题，就是我们的通过身体去感知对未来的幻想，这个与今天的主题变化又有什么关联的？那么现在我们就一起来揭秘这个问题。
So before we jump into the content, I'd like to tell you a little bit about myself so we can put the work that we're doing today into context for all of us.
首先呢，我会做个自我介绍，然后这样呢，大家更能够了解就今天我们要讲话题的背景。
I have been a psychologist for over 20 years and a coach for over 15 years. I have worked with organizations and teams and individuals for 15 years through my business Adaptus, which I founded in 2007.
我做心理学家已经有20多年了，然后做教练呢也有15年了。大概在2007年的时候，我创办了自己的公司，叫做 Adaptus。然后就在过去的这些年里呢，我就是和各种各样的组织啊、团队啊以及个人合作。
And with my colleagues, we work across a range of sectors, including professional firms, insurance, food, retail, technology, and lots more. And most of our work is helping leaders and others to develop their leadership skills, emotional intelligence, communication, resilience, negotiation, mindset, and of course, many other soft skills.
我们的工作呢，它涉及了各行各业，就包括可能有事务所、保险，还有食品、零售，还有科技。然后我们主要是帮助领导者还有其他人，帮助他们提升他们的领导技能、情商、沟通能力、复原力、谈判技能以及心态，还有等等的软技能。
And we work with groups and teams and individuals face-to-face and virtually. And we also develop learning videos and virtual reality learning tools with some of our clients. So I've learned a lot about change in human beings over the last 20 years plus.
然后我们是与各种各样的团队跟个人进行面对面的，还有线上的合作，然后也为我们的客户开发出学习视频以及 VR 虚拟现实学习工具。所以在过去的20年里呢，我在改变这个关于人的改变方面呢，有很多的研究。
Also, I've published 2 books on the topic of habit change because I realized across my 15 years of working with individuals and organizations is that many organizations spend money on having a learning facilitator or a coach or mentor work with their staff, but they do not help their people to understand how they can embed the learning into action and long-term change.
就目前我已经出版了2本就关于改变习惯的书，因为在过去的15年里，在我跟个人和组织合作的时候，我发现许多组织他们会花钱邀请就是导师啊、教练跟他们员工一起工作，但是并没有帮助他们的员工去了解如何将学习纳入到他们的行动跟长期的变化中。
And so today I would like to invite you to explore with me the following. First of all, how we learn, and then the role of the nervous system in learning and change. And then as we go through this session, to think about how we create sustainable change, not just change that lasts for a few days or a few weeks, but long-term sustainable change.
现在呢，就我今天邀请大家来一起探讨以下问题。就第一个，我们是如何学习的？然后第二个，神经系统在学习和变化中它起着什么样的作用？然后第三个是如何创造可持续的变化？这个变化不是说持续可能几周几个月，是长期的变化。
And before we jump into all of this, I wanted to invite all of you to have a conversation in small breakout rooms, just to discuss when you heard about this talk, this session today, the topics that were going to be discussed, what was it that interested you in attending today's session? What is it that you have been looking forward to about today's session? We're just going to have a breakout for 6 minutes, and you will meet 3 or 4 other people to have this conversation with. So, okay, welcome back, everybody. Hopefully that was a nice conversation with some other people. And I'd like to invite you to just add any thoughts to the chat, and IC will help us translate. Anything that you took away from that conversation about what you had in common that you were looking forward to today. If you want to say in chat, or if anybody would like to speak out loud either, and IC can help us.
欢迎大家回来，然后大家就是把你们刚才讨论的结果可以分享在这个聊天框里，就针对刚才2个问题，就是你为什么要参加今天的讲座，然后你对今天的讲座有什么期待，就包括你们在刚才跟小伙伴聊天的过程当中，你们有没有发现对方2个人彼此之间的共同点，大家都可以分享出来在聊天框里。
在聊天框里分享吗？还是在这个课堂上？
可以，都可以。
我们
都可以吧？
都可以。
看到我们这个走的做发言人呢，那个你就直接在课堂上讲吧，这样可能会跟老师沟通会更加的顺畅一点。
可以。
那我第一个，我们这个组我就代表3组吧，6个字。主题、思路、方法，就是第一个题目，我为什么来参加讲座，就是看到它这个主题，所以2个字主题。第2个什么期待，就是希望它这个主题下，真正我们能够收到思路和方法，所以我第2个题的答案是思路方法。完了，谢谢。
Okay, I represent Group 3 to share our thoughts, and it can be summarized into 3 keywords. The first is topic, and the second is the thought, and the third is the methodology. And the first question, why am I attending this session? Because I was intrigued by the topic. I want to know why is this topic and what we'll be talking about. And the second question about is the expectation, because I expect about the thoughts and the methodologies related to this topic.
Thank you, Jack. Thank you, IC.
So here is an answer in the chat from Jenny Wang, and she says that she expect very much about the method concerning the sustainable change. And Ivy saw the introduction about Celine, the expert of mentoring. 然后 Ivy 的回答是她看到了 Celine 的介绍，然后被她吸引了，因为她是这方面的专家。And from Kelly, her answer is that when he is the expectation about the future from 15 to 20 years from now, and she has developed a deep feeling for this because she has a plan that she wants to achieve, and whether it is about work or life, she expects this very much. And she is also exploring the relationship between body and awareness. And she feels there is some empathy in this. And she wants to hear and what you're sharing.
Okay. Thank you so much, Kelly and Ivy and Jenny. I think Fernando wrote something as well, or was that earlier? That was maybe before the exercise.
Okay. Oh, he was talking about some technical problems.
Okay. Okay. And in response to Ivy, I definitely, the more I work in this area, the more I work in helping people to create change, the more I realize that I am not an expert, because science is teaching us so much every year that none of us are ever going to be experts in creating change, because there is still so much to learn.
然后对 Ivy 的回答呢，就是说，因为我就是在过去呢研究了在这个领域呢研究了很多，然后帮助很多人去产生变化。但是呢，我不觉得自己是一个专家，因为科学也告诉我们是有太多东西需要学习了，因为很多东西都在变化。
So again, I am just going to share some slides to show us some content. And I want to ask you all to do some fun exercises with me here.
那现在呢，我也是邀请大家跟我做一些有趣的练习。
Okay, so I would like to ask you all to just wherever you're sitting or standing at the moment, I would like you to just, with your body, express, sorry, I'm just trying to move this, just wherever you are with your body, express in how you hold your body the feeling of, I am tired.
现在呢，就是不管你可能是站着还是坐着，那我想就是邀请大家就是表现出，就是你的身体是如何表现出我很累的这种状态的，大家可以用身体表现出来。
So how would yeah, so how would your body feel? How would you hold your head? Where would this tiredness in your body express itself?
对，就是这个时候你的身体感觉如何，然后是你的头有什么样的感受，对，大家都可以展现出来。
So you might notice that your shoulders feel slumped, your head goes down, your eyes want to close. Some of you might feel like your feet are touching the ground more. You will have all sorts of different experiences.
然后大家可能有的人可能就是肩膀可能是就是可能就沉下去了，然后可能头低下来了，或者是眼睛就是想闭起来了，然后大家每个人都有就各种各样的姿势。
Thank you. I see Jenny has put something in the chat there.
Yeah. Jenny's expression is like he should put her like this. And then her shoulder and lift up her shoulder and the slight close of the eyes.
Okay, thank you. So everybody, now I want you to, in your body, show me and think about how you would express from the top of your head to your toes and out to your fingers the feeling of, I am annoyed. Someone has really annoyed me just now. You know, somebody has made me angry or frustrated. Where would you feel that in your body?
那现在就再换一种情绪，就是说刚才可能某个人或者某件事让我感到非常恼火，然后我现在的身体就是从头顶到你的脚趾，到手指，然后你是如何表现出这种状态的，很恼火的状态。
Would anybody like to share?
大家要分享一下吗？
Yeah, me, if you have, yeah. I think eyes are opening big and with heavy breaths, and also feeling like the uncontrollable emotion within my blood.
Wow, thank you. So you can feel it all over your body.
Yes.
Belinda 她的分享可能是，比如说可能眼睛睁得很大，可能是比如翻白眼，还有可能然后呼吸，然后就是可能这样感到很生气，然后深呼吸，还有就是可能出现情绪不太受控的情况。
Okay, super. And I can see lots of more people sharing, and I thank you for that. I want to move us on to the third item, which is that you just found out you won an award as the best mentor in China.
那我们换到第三个状态，就是你刚刚就知道你获得了一个奖，我获得了一个奖，还有就是可能中国最佳导师奖，还有这个时候你是如何表现出你的这种就是喜悦跟兴奋的。
So again, where do you feel this in your body? All the way from your head to your toes, out to your fingers. Wendy's arms went up. We could see it there immediately.
所以就是当你接受到这种喜悦的时候，你的身体，你的从头到脚，你是整个是如何感受的。
Thank you. And in the chat, we can see Kelly said there's a smile. Casey feels a jump. Kelly, a dance, the whole body. Wendy, a jump high, as you said. Ivy, so exciting with open mouth. Okay, so you could really feel it in different parts of your body.
看大家都很激动，就是有想跳舞的，有跳起来跳得很高的，然后有就是大笑的，然后都很激动的。
So thank you everybody for playing with me on this, and I'm going to explain why I asked you to do this.
谢谢大家的分享。好，现在我会跟大家解释我为什么要做这个练习。
So just imagine your client, whether you're working as a coach, as a mentor, as a manager. Imagine somebody comes to you and there was nothing to them but their head.
就大家想象一下，你是位导师或者教练，或者是一位就是经理，然后你的客户来找你，但是这个客户呢，他就是只有头，他只有头，就是没有底下的部位，就头。
So there was nothing below the shoulders. How could learning and change take place?
就这个时候，他的学习跟变化，它会如何产生呢？
And many people at the forefront of neuroscience, neurobiology, psychology, mentoring, and coaching would answer that it's just not possible.
许多在比如说教练啊、神经科学、神经生物学以及在可能心理学等等领域工作的人，他们会回答说这是不可能的，是不可能，就是只有大脑的话是不可能做到学习跟变化的。
And this is what I really want to talk with you today. Our brain does not exist in a vat. It exists all the way out to our fingers and our toes.
这就是我今天想跟大家讨论的，就是我们的大脑并不是存在在一个缸里，因为大家可能听说过缸中之脑这个说法。还有我们的大脑，它是跟我们的手指还有脚趾是紧密相连的。
Sensory information is coming through our fingers, through our toes, in through our ears, our eyes, our mouths, our skin.
然后这个感官信息，它是通过我们的手指、脚趾，包括我们的眼睛，还有皮肤等等，都是通过所有这些来传递的。
However, when we work with people, whether we're coaches, mentors, managers, helping other people to create change, a lot of what we do, we keep it above the shoulders. We keep it in the, what would you like to do? What are the thoughts? What are the goals? It's all very cognitive.
然后当我们做就是导师或者教练，然后管理者，然后帮助别人做变化的时候，我们常常就是局限在这个大脑部位，就是我们经常比如说问他们你要怎么做，然后你有什么想法，然后你的目标是什么，大家都是停留在这个认知层面的。
And so when we think about helping people with long-term change, we can't just look at the brain and what's above the shoulders.
就当我们想要如果帮助他人做出就是长期的变化的时候，就我们不能只看大脑。
It's not enough to just think about conceptual awareness. For example, what we think, or setting our goals, or the stories we tell ourselves that help or hinder us to get where we want to go.
然后我们也不能说只考虑就是比较概念性的意识，就比如说你是要怎么思考，就是设定目标，还有以及就是讲自己的故事，就不能只考虑这些，然后这些可能会这样的话可能会阻碍他学习和改变。
So all of the research now in neurobiology, neuroscience, and at the cutting edge of psychology is showing us that we have to look at how the entire distributed nervous system learns. Our understanding, even our most conceptual or abstract understanding, is deeply embodied. It's embodied, it's not just up here.
然后神经科学呢，神经生物学就是很多研究都表明，就我们要通过去了解整个分布式神经系统它是如何学习的，就我们的理解那种概念性的理解或者抽象的理解，它是都是可以具象化的、具身化的，并不说只是停留在认知层面的。
And yet, when it comes to coaching, to mentoring, to helping other people change, so many of us focus, as I said, on conceptual awareness. We get people thinking and setting goals. And many of us, as people who are helping to create change in others, we neglect getting people to explore their embodied experience.
我们很多人就在做导师跟教练的时候呢，把大部分时间都花在了让客户关注他的概念性意识上面，就让他思考啊、设定目标、讲故事这些，忽略了去让他们去感受自己的具身体验。
We, as the people helping others to make change, we need to think about our own embodied experience. Just like I did with some of the exercises earlier, getting you to think about how your body feels when you're tired or when you're annoyed or when you've just won an award.
我们自己就是作为人，然后帮助别人变化的时候呢，也要去仔细的思考一下我们自己的具身体验。就像刚开始我要求大家做的练习，就针对那种3种不同的情绪，然后大家的身体是如何感觉的。
So what the science is showing us is that not only do we need to get the people that we're working with to get more into their body and their embodied experience, excuse me, we as coaches and mentors and managers also need to be in our body in order to be excuse me, more present to help those people create change.
然后科学也表明呢，就是我们不只要就帮助我们的客户，让他们去更深切感受他们的身体体验，同时我们自己呢，也要注重我们的身体感受，就是有场域，然后就是注重当下的感受。
Apologies, everybody. I've had 2 flus since the new year, and I still have a cough. So our clients, everybody that we're working with, whether we're mentoring, whether we're coaching, whether we're managing others, they all have knowledge. And they also have habits and behaviors. And I don't need to tell you this, but where we, as people working with others to create change, where we work best is helping them to create new habits and behaviors, because over 40% of our behaviors on a day-to-day basis are habits.
那我们的客户呢，他们有知识，也有习惯和行为。然后这个其实不需要我多说，就我们在就作为导师教练，我们呢主要是也是帮助客户改变他们的就是习惯和行为。
And the value that we bring in the work that a lot of us do compared to other learning experiences is that as mentors, as coaches, and as managers, we can help people to make things very experiential.
跟其他的学习经历相比呢，我们在做导师教练或者管理者的时候，我们为客户带来的价值呢，它是主要是体验式的。
So, if the way to help people create change is by building new neural networks, but these networks are included throughout our nervous system, and change comes through emotional engagement and practice. And emotional engagement and practice doesn't just happen up here, it happens all over our body.
我们在就是帮客户做出改变的时候呢，是要帮助他们建立新的神经网络。然后建立这个新的神经网络呢，它也是通过情感投入和实践来实现的。
The science shows us that we need to get people emotionally engaged. The neurotransmitters dopamine and acetylcholine is released when people are emotionally engaged. And when people are emotionally engaged and there is more dopamine and acetylcholine in the system, then this is when the new neural networks are created.
科学研究也表明呢，就当人们就是情感投入的时候，会释放出一些如多巴胺或者是乙酰胆碱这些东西。然后这些东西呢，有助于帮助我们的客户去创造出新的神经网络。
And repetition over time strengthens those growing networks. Therefore, by connecting something, the person that we're working with, our client, the person we're managing, if we can connect something that they're already doing and build on this to help them create the change, then we create natural repetition.
然后随着时间的推移呢，我们会发现就是有一个重复的循环会有助于扩大这样的神经网络，就是把客户他可能在做的比较好的方面，可能比较好的就是管理方面的行为，把它做的好的地方把它连接起来，然后在这个基础上我们去就是建立一个循环，然后就是不断的扩大它的神经网络。
So I would like to invite you to have a look at this image. This is the Kolb's learning cycle, which some of you may have come across previously.
那大家看这张图片，我相信大家很多人就看过这张，是库伯的学习圈理论。
And his theory was one of the reasons I started working the way I work. I realized that a lot of organizations were not focusing on making learning as experiential as possible. And this model shows us that we need to make it as experiential as possible. And what I want to do is show you why and how this reflects in our brain and body.
我呢，其实之所以做现在的工作呢，也是之前受到了这个模型的启发，然后它让我意识到 有很多组织并没有让员工是尽可能体验式的学习。那我在跟客户合作的过程当中呢，也是尽量的让他们去沉浸在体验式学习当中。那么后面我会跟大家展开这个与我们的大脑跟身体有什么关联。
So experiential learning starts anywhere in this cycle. Let's take the concrete experiences over on the right. When I wish to make a change in my life, I have some experience in the world that makes me believe I would benefit from getting some support in making that change. And that's why I come to my manager or my mentor or my coach.
体验式学习可以从这个图章当中的任何一步开始，然后看右边的具体经验。就当我希望我改变生活有所变化的时候呢，然后我的一些经历，它让我相信，我如果就是得到一些帮助，比如说接受可能导师或者教练的指导，那么我能从中受益。
So at the bottom of the diagram, we see reflective observation. This is what my manager or my coach or my mentor helps me with. That person helps me to reflect on what is going on in my experience and helps me to find a different way of doing things to move things towards my goal.
在这个图片底部呢是反思性观察，他是我的导师、教练、管理者，还有他们帮助我去思考，就从我的行为当中有哪些发现，然后我可以以一种比如说可采取怎样不同的行为方式，然后或者说怎样换一种方式去朝着我的目标努力。
And in that conversation, I will come up with ideas. I will come up with what's called abstract conceptualizations of what I can do more of or less of or differently.
然后通过这样的对话，我能产生出一些可能新的想法，然后形成抽象化的概念，然后我知道我可能在哪些方面可以继续就是多做一点，然后哪些方面少做一点，或者说就是一种完全不同的方式去做。
And then with those ideas of what I can do differently, I then go into the top of the model, which is active experimentation. So I now go out back into the world or into my job, and I go take some actions that have come from the reflective observation and the abstract conceptualization. And I try these things out now.
然后带着这样的想法，然后我回到了我的工作中，然后在我的行动中，把我刚才就是提取的一些抽象化概念，然后应用到新的就是行为当中，就是主动试验这上面的。
And then in this model, once I've tried things out, now I'm having that concrete experience based on whatever I'm trying out. And then I come back again to my manager or my coach or my mentor to discuss in that reflective observation how trying things differently has worked out or not worked out for me.
然后在我试验以后呢，然后我也就是行动，然后去尝试验证。就在这个过程当中呢，我就拥有了具体的经验，然后跟我的教练、导师进行对话，然后做反思性的思考，就是这样继续到进入到下一个循环中。
And so our experience keeps going through this cycle. When we're trying to create change, our experience keeps going through this cycle of concrete experience, reflective observation, abstract conceptualization, and active experimentation, and around and around.
当我们想要就帮助客户做出变化的时候呢，我们就是在经历的在这个学习圈，就是在经历这样的循环，从具体的经验，然后到反思性观察，再到抽象概念，然后再最后到主动实验，就这样不断循环往复。
And what science is showing us, though, is that this is not the full picture. This experiential learning is part of the picture of creating long-term change. And what I wanted to show you was an image where you can map this experiential learning onto the brain.
然后科学研究也表明呢，就是对于要做出变化，然后这样的体验式学习也是不够的，它只是其中的一部分。然后呢，我现在把这张图，然后映射到另外一张图，就是我们的大脑。
So this is a picture of the brain, and here we can see on the left-hand side, it says abstract hypothesis. So this is where your nose would be.
大家看这张图，就是左边有个抽象假设，这里指的就是鼻子的位置，鼻子。
So I'm going to ask you to play with me again. I invite you all to put your hands on the top back part of your head, right up here.
我现在邀请大家就把手都放在你的后脑勺上面。
So this is where the information is coming into your body. Sorry, this is where the information is coming into your brain from your body.
然后在这个位置呢，就是信息它就是从身体然后传到这个位置的。
It's part of the brain where your brain starts to go, oh, here's the information I'm getting. And it starts to make sense of that information.
就是在这个部位，人家的大脑它就开始想，这就是我得到的信息，然后它开始就对这个信息会开始理解这些信息。
Now, if you move your hands down to here, put them at the back of your head, at the base of your skull, this is where your cerebellum is. The cerebellum is the part of your brain that is involved in procedural learning and memory.
然后大家再把你的手就还是放在头骨底部，这个是小脑的位置。然后小脑的它主要是参与程序性学习和记忆的。
So if you know how to ride a bike and you haven't ridden a bike for years, and then you get on a bike and then you can ride again, the cerebellum plays a role in that.
举个例子，然后大家都知道怎么骑自行车，但是呢，你很多年没有骑了，但是你再次骑的时候呢，也是一点问题都没有。就这个过程呢，就是小脑在发挥作用。
Okay, so now with your hands, I want to invite you to think about the frontal part of your brain. So put your hands here.
然后现在大家把手就是放到你的额头。
So this is the part of the brain that decides the next steps that you're going to take. So when you're thinking about how am I going to behave differently? What am I going to do differently? This is the important part of the brain that helps us to execute the plans.
然后这个部位呢，它主要是就是帮你思考，就如何制定行动计划。你可能开始想如何以不同的方式行事。然后在这里呢，它主要是帮助我们制定跟执行计划的。
And then I just invite you to put your hands at the top of your head here. Then we go back out into, sorry, I see.
现在大家把手放到头顶，在中间位置。
So then we go back out into the world. And again, this part at the top of the head, in the middle top of the head, so not as far back as our sensory cortex that we did earlier. This area is helping us then to really take action in the world.
然后呢，就是我们就是走到在外面的世界，然后这里头顶中间的部位，这个部位主要就是让我们是掌控我们就采取行动的地方，就我们就是采取行动，然后会做出反应，就在中间头顶这个部位。
And just to come back to what I mentioned earlier, in this picture, the reflective observation, okay, so we can see the temporal integrative cortex on this diagram. If you put your hands here, just at the sides above your ears, this is the part of the brain involved when we're having that conversation with our coach or our manager and we're thinking about how we could do things differently.
然后大家就是把手放过来，就是大概在这个大脑的侧部，这个应该是在太阳穴这个位置。这个位置就是我们导师、教练、管理者，他就帮我们去思考，可能怎样可以去采取一些不一样的行动。
I bet you didn't think today would be an exercise class. Okay, so as we learn, our brain is, all of this is cycling through the brain again and again. And as we go through the process of mentoring or coaching, or when we're managing others or we're being managed, we're always cycling through these parts of the brain in thinking about and taking action and then reflecting on the action that we've taken.
在我们做导师、教练或者管理者的时候，我们在帮助客户他要做出改变的时候，我们的大脑就是经过这样的一个循环的过程，然后帮助他们去思考他们的行动，然后去思考可以怎样去做一些不一样的事情。
So if we take just a simple example, the person who wants to make better food choices, they have a certain amount of information or knowledge about nutrition, but they need to augment that with updated knowledge or new knowledge.
现在我举个例子，就你的客户他想选择就是健康的饮食，然后他们对营养呢已经掌握了一定的信息或者知识，但是他们也需要不断的去更新这些信息。
And as we've been discussing today, they'll have certain habits, certain habitual behavior around how they interact with food. And they'll also have certain embodied knowing experiences, of just reaching for things that are embodied and are habits.
就像我前面也提到的，就是比如说关于人跟食物之间的关系，然后我们的客户他本身其实有了一定的就是比较习惯，他有一些习惯性的行为就在这方面，或者他本身对这方面也有一些具身的认知，就是切身的体验。
So our job as a coach, as a mentor, as a manager, is to help people to start understanding what are the embodied actions, not just the thinking, but what are the embodied actions of those habits that they want to change.
然后我们呢，也是要帮客户去理解他们的，就是不只是行动，就包括他们的具身认知要怎样去改变。
We need to help people to do things differently, not just think about it. And this requires involving the whole body.
我们需要就是帮助别人去就在行为上要换一种方式去做，就不只是说换一种方式思考，然后这个呢也是就涉及到我们的身体的。
So here is our headless guy again, the guy without his body. Imagine there's nothing to us but this head. We've nothing below the shoulders. But as I said earlier, that's not the way it is. So what I'm saying is that we as coaches, mentors, and managers, we have to help other people understand how this learning happens all the way through our nervous system out to our fingers and toes.
我们呢要去帮助我们的客户去理解这个学习它是怎么发生的，然后这个就是在我们的整个神经系统里面，它是如何就是影响到就是我们的学习的。
About 10% of the neurons in our body are found in our gut. This has nerves all the way from our mouth to our anus. There's a hollow tube through the center of us that helps us turn the world into our bodies when we eat.
在我们体内大概有10%的神经元，它是存在我们的肠道里的，就在我们身体中心就是有一个管，然后我们吃东西的时候呢，也是通过这个管然后消化的。好，这些神经它其实是从我们的嘴巴，然后一直延伸到这个肛门。
This is the only part of the body, of the nervous system that can turn down instruction from the brain in the head.
这部分呢，也是神经系统中唯一会能够拒绝大脑指令的部分。
It's very sophisticated, our gut, and it contains about 95% of the serotonin in our body. The serotonin, some of you may know, is that happy neurotransmitter.
然后这个肠道呢，它是非常复杂的，它含有人体95%的血清素。然后这个血清素大家可能知道，这个它是对我们而言是一种快乐的传递物质。
So for anyone who is familiar with antidepressants, SSRI medications, those target serotonin as a way of supporting our mood.
那些 SSRI 那些抗抑郁的药物这些药物其实主要就是靠血清素，然后来就是支撑我们人的情绪的。
And those SSRIs are used to improve the way our body processes serotonin so that our mood is improved. And 95% of our serotonin is found in our gut.
抗抑郁药物呢，它的作用主要就是通过改善我们人体处理血清素的方式，然后从而就是改善我们的情绪。就在我们体内大概有95%的血清素，它是在我们肠道里的。
And what we find is that there are really strong ties between the gut and our mood, how we feel. And this is a huge thing to understand. We don't have as many neurons in our gut as we do in our brain, but the information that travels from our gut to our brain travels at a much greater rate of volume than the information travels from our brain to our gut.
研究也发现，肠道跟情绪它是有很强的关联的。然后我们的大脑里呢，就是在我们的肠道里的神经元呢，没有大脑里的多。然后信息从肠道到大脑传递到大脑的速度，要比这个信息从大脑传递到肠道的速度要快得多。
The brain is a listening station for the information in our gut. Back to why I said we can't just be thinking about the brain and thought in order to create change. There's so many other things happening throughout our body.
我们的大脑呢是肠道信息的一个倾听站，好，也像我之前所说的，就是我们要做变化的、产生变化的、引起变化的时候呢，也不只是局限在大脑层面。
All of the information travels up a nerve called the vagus nerve, which many of you may have heard of. And the vagus nerve sends 8 to 9 messages up to the brain for every one message that the brain sends down.
所有的信息呢，都是通过迷走神经传递的。你们可能听说过这个，就大脑每发送一条信息，然后迷走神经就会向大脑发送8到9条信息。
So as mentors and as coaches and managers, we often make the mistake of thinking that the brain is the central command control. But really, we know, and all of you will know, that the body is so much more involved in change. So we need to help people start to understand what their body is telling them. And I'm going to bring you through some different ways of thinking about the body to help us do this.
在做导师跟教练的时候呢，我们也要帮助客户去 理解，就是他们身体就除了大脑，他们的身体还给他们传递了什么样的信息，是可以传递怎样不同的东西。
So I want to get us thinking about self-awareness. What we're looking to do when if we really want to create long-term sustainable change is to help our clients, those we're mentoring or coaching, or those we're mentoring and managing, create more self-awareness.
现在呢，我们来看看自我意识。就当我们想帮助我们的客户做出长期改变的时候呢，我们常常就从这个自我意识入手，就是让他们有这个自我意识。
Self-awareness is the ability to understand oneself in the current moment, just as I am now, not how I think I should be.
自我意识它主要是指你了解当下自己的能力，就是你自己的当下真实的样子，而不是你想象中的你以为的你自己好像是什么样子。
So self-awareness is made up of two items. It's conceptual self-awareness and embodied self-awareness. Conceptual self-awareness is based in linguistic and symbolic forms of expression. It's rational, it's logical.
自我意识它是由两部分组成，是概念性自我意识跟具身性自我意识。而概念性自我意识呢，它是以语言和符号的表达为基础的，它是理性的、逻辑的。
On the other hand, embodied self-awareness is based in sensing and feeling. It's spontaneous, it's creative, it's lived in the present moment.
而具身性自我意识呢，它是以感官和感觉为基础的，它是自发的、有创造性的，而且是注重当下的。
So I'm just going to put some descriptions up here. A lady called Dr. Jennifer Tantia explains conceptual self-awareness and embodied self-awareness this way. I'll let you read the slides.
这里呢是Jennifer Tantia 博士，他就对概念性自我意识和具身性自我意识的一个解释，给一点时间给大家读一下。
So science is showing us that if we want to help people create real and lasting change, it's embodied self-awareness that we need to help people to move into more.
科学表明，就如果我们想帮助客户创造真正持久的变化，我们需要让客户就产生具身性自我意识。
So the work that we do as coaches and mentors and managers of others is about evoking awareness. And most of what's happening in our bodies is below our awareness.
我们做导师、教练或管理者的时候，就是要帮助我们的客户或员工去唤起他们的意识。然后其实大多数时候，我们就身体里发生的事情，其实就是在我们的意识之下发生的。
And when we help people to become more aware of what's happening in their bodies, it evokes a kind of felt sense, awareness, that's really different from the conceptual or thinking about awareness, the type that a lot of us do as coaches and mentors and as managers. So it's about helping people tap into that felt sense.
我们帮助客户就是意识到他们 身体里发生的事情的时候，就会唤起他们的一种感觉上的体验意识，就是感知意识。这个与我们通常唤起他们的概念性意识是完全不同的。
And what science is showing us is that when we can evoke that felt sense or that embodied awareness alongside the conceptual awareness, then more of our brain and our body becomes online to both understand the problem and to create the long-term change.
科学也表明，就当我们就在唤起概念性意识的同时，然后唤起感知意识或者是具身性意识的时候，我们的大脑跟身体呢，然后也会充分调动起来，然后来理解问题并就创造变化。
So we need to help the people that we're working with to create the change do, yes, the conceptual thinking. And then what we need to do is help them to notice all the other information that is coming to them from their bodies as they experience what they're doing now and move towards what they want to do more of, less of, or differently.
我们在做导师或教练的时候，不仅要帮助我们的客户进行概念性的思考，也要帮他们注意到所有从身体里传递出来的信息，就让他们感受当下，然后从现在，然后知道要怎样去，比如说多做什么，少做什么，或者说如果换一种方式去做什么。
There is a wonderful author and teacher, Amanda Blake, and she talks about this integrated intelligence, the whole body mind, and how we bring it into learning and change by simultaneously co-activating several or all of these networks, these different intelligences, and integrating and involving them all at once.
阿曼德·布莱克呢，他就曾经也说过，就是当我们可以通过同时激活，就这个图上的，可以同时激活几个或者全部的相关网络，然后来调动就是我们客户的综合智能，然后让他们全身心的投入到这个学习跟改变中。然后最后呢，我们然后也需要让客户就是在当下就更多的感知到他们希望做出怎样的改变，然后以及什么可能阻碍或者支持他们。
So as coaches and mentors and managers, we're very good at doing the conceptual coaching. And we need to think more about the autonomic, the extraception, the intraception, and the proprioception.
作为导师教练，我们其实已经能比如在这个概念性的教练方面呢，其实我们已经做的应该是非常好了。然后我们同时呢，也要思考一下，就是综合其他的要素，比如说客户的他的内在感知、他的外在感知、他的本体感知等等。
So let's think about intraception. This is the internal visceral sensations. This is the feeling of being hot or cold, itchy or nauseous, or dizzy or hungry, or a feeling of tingliness or shakiness in our bodies.
然后首先我们来看内在感知，内在感知就是主要是指我们体内的就是内脏的感觉。我们比如说我们会感觉到疼痛，然后忽冷忽热，然后会感觉到就是痒，然后感觉到恶心，会头晕饥饿或者刺痛，然后可能身体在剧烈的颤抖。
So as coaches, as mentors, as managers, instead of just asking the person that we're working with, what do you think of the change that you're making right now? Or what is blocking you from the change? As well as those types of questions, we need to ask them things that are focused around interoception, such as, is there anything you're experiencing a change of temperature right now in your body?
然后针对关于这个内在感知呢，我们可以问一些问题，就除了问，我们可能一般会比如说问一些问题，就是你在客户对你想到你做出的改变，然后你当下是有什么感受，然后或者说有什么阻碍了你的变化，就除了这些问题以外，我们还可以问一些其他的问题，比如说你感觉就是你身体哪个部位可能这个温度出现了变化。
So if you think about somebody who has been blocked from making a change that they want to make, instead of just asking them about what's blocking you or what's stopping you, you can ask them, where do you feel the most tension right now? Or what happens if you let that tension go?
所以当你的客户他遇到一些阻碍的时候，就除了你问那些是什么阻碍了你这些问题，你还可以问，就你感觉现在你身体哪个部位你感觉可能最紧张最紧绷，但如果你不紧绷了，又有什么样的感觉？
We have to become attuned to listening for language from the people that we're working with that refers to this interoceptive embodied experience. So the people that we're working with will say things like, I had to bite my tongue. Or as Wendy said earlier in the chat, I could feel it. It was a gut feeling.
我们也会听到，有时候听到客户他也是说一些可能与这个内在感知可能相关的话，比如说我不得不咬紧牙关，或者说就像在这个聊天框里 Wendy 说的，就是我就是有感觉，就是应该是我有这样的直觉，就是从这种问题听到这种话的时候呢，你也就是可以从这个角度来突破。
And so we can also think about proprioception, which is the position of the body in space. So that's how balanced we feel. That's also our interpersonal boundaries.
本体感觉是指身体在空间里的位置，比如说你可能身体的平衡，或者说是人与人之间的界限。
So if we are coaching or mentoring or managing somebody, we can notice, are they slouched or are they upright? Do they consistently lean back or lean forward? Do they tilt their head in one direction? Or, are they making repetitive gestures with their arms? Are their gestures fast or slow? Are they lethargic or energetic?
还有关于本体感觉呢，就我们在做导师、教练、管理者的时候呢，我们可以观察就我们的客户或者员工他们的姿势，你看他做的时候，就是可能做的比较懒散，还是做的比较端正，或者说你看他身体是比如向后倾啊，还是向前倾啊，然后他们的头是不是像一个地方就是歪着的，或者是他们可能就是手可能就是比如放在肩膀上呀，然后你看他这个姿势可能是快还是动，快的还是慢的，就是看他是无精打采的，还是充满就是精力充沛的，可以观察。
So for example, if you're working with somebody and you're asking them, what do you want to do differently? That's a conceptual way of asking it. As well as that, you could ask them, what are you moving towards? And then their body becomes more involved.
然后我们就是会有时候除了问概念性的问题，就是说客户他要怎样做一些不一样的，你也可以问他，就是你身体这样前倾是为什么？可以问这样的问题，就是让他专注在他的身体上。
The other thing we can think about is extraception, which is sight, smell, hearing, taste, touch. If we can help our clients to think more about the sights, the sounds, the smells, the tastes, then they were going to be more successful again in embodying that experience and moving more towards what they want.
然后我们来看就是外在感知，外在感知主要就是关注客户的他们的视觉、嗅觉、听觉、味觉还有触觉，就我们可以就是帮助客户他们就是运用他们的想象力，就是想象比如他们可能实现了他们的目标啊，然后这时候他们的五感是什么样的。
So again, another example of a question might be to ask somebody, what message do your eyes have for you right now?
然后这个时候呢，你也可以问一些问题，比如说你的眼睛这个时候就给你传递了什么信息。
So as you can see, we're bringing the body and the senses more involved with the change that we're helping that person to create.
所以我们就是通过这种方式，就是通过身体感知，然后把这些相关信息，然后接入就是融入到我们这个帮助客户改变的过程当中。
So we can also bring people's attention to their autonomic intelligence. So to help them think about how their heart is beating or whether their breath is slowing down or speeding up as they think about the change that they want to make.
我们也可以就是让客户专注他们的自主神经，然后问一些问题，然后让他们去关注自己的心跳还有呼吸。
Questions such as, where is your breathing right now? Or how does your breathing feel like right now? Or what does your heart say?
你可以问一些问题，就是你现在的呼吸感觉如何？然后你的心里有什么话要说的？有什么心里话？
So we need to keep all of these things in mind, these integrated intelligences. If on the left-hand side of this diagram, you can see the embodied, you can see the conceptual on the right-hand side, and emotional in the middle.
所以我们就是记住将刚才的那些感知呢，就是全部都是融合到我们就是帮助客户改变的过程当中。然后大家看这张图，在左边呢就是刚才我们提到的就是具身性意识，然后右边呢就是概念性的自我意识，而在它们中间呢是人的情绪情感。
So on the left-hand side, the embodied intelligences, so interoception, proprioception, and extraception, they are all neurobiologically distinct from the conceptualizing.
然后在这个具身性，就是具身那个认知里面，内在感知、本体感知和外在感知，它们在就是神经生物学上是不同的，它们是跟右边这个概念性的意识是有区别的。
So emotional sits in the middle, and that's because it bridges the conceptual knowing with the embodied knowing.
然后在中间的情绪就是这个概念认知和具身认知之间的桥梁。
So as you can see, the neurobiology and the neuroscience and the cutting edge of coaching and mentoring and psychology is telling us that we need to really direct the people that we are managing and coaching towards actually naming and working out what's happening in their body, because that is either helping or hindering them to create real and lasting change.
神经科学呢，也就是研究也表明，我们就需要就是帮助我们的客户去引导他们去了解他们身体上的感受，然后通过这个角度呢，然后帮助他们去做一些改变。
So I'm very conscious of time, and I just want to check in. Is this making sense? And does anyone have any questions that we can answer?
现在因为就时间因为到7点半了，然后现在大家有没有什么问题想问的？
我有一个问题来问一下，我用中文讲啊，反正这个大家也都能听的，反正也要翻译。我就觉得这个对我们来讲是非常就是要去关注的，在辅导过程中啊。但是呢，可能平常从这个概念性的这样的一个感知到具身的这样的一个变化，这个过程，可能我们还找不到特别好的一种方式，或者说在这个怎么样的情况下去关注到他的这个具身的这样的一个感知，就是这个点上面还能不能再讲一讲，秦老师，请的。
Now in our normal mentoring practice, actually it is hard for us to transfer from the conceptual awareness to the embodied awareness. We can't find a proper way to do this transfer, and how we can focus on the embodied knowing of the clients, how we can focus on his or her the sense, and to share more about this.
Yes, and I realized that I had to practice on myself first as the coach and manager and mentor. So I had to start paying attention to what was going on in my body. And then as I started to understand my own embodied awareness, then it became easier for me to ask other people questions to help them become more embodied. So, for example, even simple things that I started with were when somebody said to me, for example, you know, I've tried this thing before, but it hasn't worked for me. I might just ask them, well, where can you feel that in your body that you couldn't do that before? I see you're muted.
这个呢，首先就我会自己做一些练习，就是从我的自己角度，我首先关注我自己的身体感受，然后就从我自己的身体感受，然后提升自己，再就是对具象，就是意识具身认知的这个了解，然后这样的话，在这个基础上，我才能更加容易的去问就是我的客户这个相关的问题，然后才能够提升客户他的具身认知。就举个例子，比如说你的客户找到你，然后他跟你说我就是试过就是尝试过某种方法，但是好像无效，然后你就可以问他，就是你觉得你在这方面你的尝试失败了，然后你的身体感受是怎样的？
And what I noticed is that when I started asking these questions, people had much more awareness about their bodies, but they weren't using it. And sometimes if they couldn't identify it in their body, then I would ask them, well, when you think about that block, how does it feel emotionally? And so if they couldn't recognize it in their body, at least they could usually recognize an emotion. And then by recognizing that emotion, then I would ask them, okay, where do you feel that emotion in your body? Is it in your fingers? Is it in your toes? Is it in your heart? Is it in your stomach or your gut? Is it in your elbows? Is it in your head? And then they would start to recognize where in their body it was. And then we could use that embodied experience to move them towards the change or to unblock the change.
然后呢，接下来我会就是继续就是问一些问题，就是你对自己现在身体感觉有没有什么样的就是意识到身体什么的变化？然后有的人他可能意识到身体变化，但是他就是不会用。然后有的时候呢，我就是也是比较难的，可能直接从身体入手。我会就是先问他，就是你现在情绪上感觉怎么样？ 就是至少我们可以利用他的情绪，就是你现在你的情绪怎么样，然后就是你的情绪，然后会影响到比如说你的身体的部位啊，就是你的手指，比如手指啊，或者肠胃啊，或者内心，就是等等地方，就从这个角度然后突破，然后让他就是增强他的具身认知，然后这个时候呢就可以就是帮他就是在引导他去做变化。
So what I've really realized in learning about everything that science is telling us is that we have to start with ourselves first. Like with all coaching and mentoring, managing, if we're not doing it for ourselves first, how can we expect others to be able to do it?
所以基于我自己的就是实践研究也是基于就是科学的研究，因为不管你做什么，首先我们都要从就是自己身上自己出发，自己实践。因为你如果你自己做不到的话，就是还怎么去引导别人，对不对？
And just to add that there's so many people who are doing research on the cutting edge of neuroscience, neurobiology, leadership, managing and coaching. And all of these individuals would say that within this embodied experience, if there is one person that we have a resonant relationship with that is help guiding us through this, then we are much more likely to create that sustained change. So all of you, and myself included, as the mentor, as the coach, and as the manager, if we are helping people to get in touch with the full experience of where they are and where they want to get to, we're going to be much more successful in that resonant relationship where they feel safe than if they do it on their own.
很多在比如神经科学啊、神经生物学以及领导力、管理等多个方面，就是他们这些研究方面的专家，然后都就是发现，就在我们就是面对个人的时候，如果要加强他们的具身体验的时候，如果我们就是两个人之间有一个就是共振、共鸣的关系的话，这样可能能更好的去引导对方。就我们作为导师或者教练呢，我们帮助客户去全身心的去体验他，比如说现在处在什么位置，然后他想要去到哪里，就是通过这种共振的形式，然后去帮助他创造持久的变化。
So after this session, I can put together a list of different questions as examples of what you can ask. And hopefully you can ask yourself and ask others, and just practice will help you to be better and better at it.